Good evening, everyone. It's time for another episode, another action-packed episode of Necromaniacs podcast. How's it going, Mike?
It is going well. Hello, everybody. It's my Scandato this time. Back again. It is April 18th when we're recording this one. A very, very rainy, crappy night in Brooklyn. It's like a storm out here. What about in Jersey?
Yeah, it's raining and cold. And
yeah.
I had to close the windows, actually.
Yeah, too cold. Schizophrenic April weather, folks. Those listening outside of the immediate area in New York and New Jersey. April years ago used to mean spring in New York. Now it pretty much just means the end of winter. Yes or no?
Yeah, I would say that's accurate for the last few years. You know, it's very very perplexing for me.
I know. Like I've said this before, New York gets nice around May 1st.
Yeah.
Or maybe like after the 20th or so of April. You know, it's just like still kind of blah sometimes. It's very schizophrenic. But since the last time you and I were together doing an episode where we did the French film Livid, I feel like I've seen about 37 shows, Michael. Been out there a lot, you know.
Oh, it's been an eventful week and a half too for me. I mean, we did our first road work as a band, and played a local show. Our first local show of the year with the Mighty Evoken and our new buddies, Restless Spirit from Long Island. So it was kind of like like a New York, New Jersey locals only show. It was cool.
Nice, yes, and of course, if listeners paying close attention, Mike and I had dueling shows on Saturday, April 16th. Mike had the metal show and I had the hardcore show, and of course, the shows were literally blocks away from each other, or less than a mile from each other. So it was kind of cool.
Yeah.
I wanted to get there to see Tombs, but The Last Stand ended up going on last, because Sworn Enemy, who were the headliners, had to cancel. There was one of the guys in the band had an injury and had to have surgery. So, but it was cool. It was fun. New York is a busy town, and sometimes friends play on the same night as friends, right, Mike?
Sometimes you just got to do what you got to do, man. And, it is what it is. And, there'll be other nights. I'm confident of that. But I got to tell you, man, it was really great to get out on the road. And, it feels like things are pretty, to me, I'm going to say I feel pretty normal right now. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, it's weird. I mean, I do too. I kind of hit it hard this weekend. I went Thursday. I went to go see this black metal show, Holder, with the female singer songwriter black metal band. Played with the Canadian band Spectral Wound, who were just so good. Like, it was just unbelievable live performance from Spectral Wound. I see big things for that band if they keep hitting the road and playing in front of people. I mean, they just kind of had the crowd eating out of the palm of their hand, as they say. They kind of sounded like Dawn at times, Mike, from Sweden, and no one got to see Dawn in America. So it's almost like you kind of feel like you're seeing Dawn, but with some with extra goodness on top of it. It's kind of cool.
Yeah, totally. I mean, those guys are fantastic, man. We played with them a few years ago up in Providence, Rhode Island, and the guy that I know out of the band is Jonah, the singer, and I have some of their material that I picked up at the show we played together, and
nice.
Yeah, they're on Profound Lore now, and that's a solid label to be on. They always put out really really good stuff, like high quality stuff.
Yeah, that's a label where it's like if you put 5 of their records in front of you, you'll probably like 4 of them. They're just
totally
very consistently solid label with their metal, their death metal, their black metal, doom metal, etc. So that was fun, and been rehearsing with my bands and stuff, and then Saturday we had the show, and Friday, this is funny. I can't remember what I did right now on Friday, but I think I went to another show.
That's funny, man.
Okay. Yeah. How's that? Um, and then Sunday went to a show, saw Lamacchia, our friend John Lamacchia, formerly of Candiria. You just interviewed him
Yeah.
on Everything Went Black podcast. That was a lot of fun. So yeah, man, been seeing a lot of shows, enjoying a lot of music. And I just wanted to give some props. About 2 weeks ago, I saw this wonderful goth post-punk band from Texas called Rose Garden Funeral Party, and just completely blown away by them. Amazing singer Leah Lane, who was like a star in the making, in my opinion. They're going to be back in New York playing with Gene Loves Jezebel in June, so I'm definitely going to go see them again. Yeah, man, been supporting a lot of music, and just want to throw it out there that my other band is playing our first show in 4 years on Sunday, June 26th at the Bowery Electric with Sworn Enemy. So it's a human Sworn Enemy, Bowery Electric, free all ages show Sunday, June 26th. I will speak proper English from the stage, I promise. So that should be a lot of fun. And Mike Hill's very own Tombs is going out on tour with Origin, right, Mike?
Yeah, man. We leave in late May and come back in the middle of June, and I will be back in town for the Inhuman reunion show. So
Excellent.
That's gonna be fun. And I just got to meet the guys in Sworn Enemy last year, and they're really cool guys. So I'm gonna be there representing everybody.
Sounds great.
Yeah.
But while we're plugging away of our own bands, Tombs, The Last Stand, and Inhuman, which you all should be following on Spotify, by the way, we're going to give some more plugs out to our friends over at Break the Apocalypse podcast, out to our friends over at Into the Necrosphere podcast, our buddy Brandon, Horror Wolf 666 podcast, who Mike Hill got to hang out with him. Right?
Yeah, man, down in Westfield, which was probably one of the more interesting shows. We were talking about this before we started recording. I don't want to talk about some of the stuff that I talked about before, but that was definitely one of the more interesting shows. People talking about drinking blood and that kind of stuff. So it was like fun.
Wonderful.
But it was great to hang out with Brandon and his lovely wife Cindy. I got to meet both of them in person. That was great.
Awesome. So yeah, check out the Horror Wolf 666 podcast, and of course, last but not least, Agitators Anonymous, Alan Averill of Primordial, who has been on a tear lately with his music industry related episodes. Really cool stuff about touring. He also had a great Slayer episode recently. So yeah, he kind of alternates. One will be about the music industry, and then one will be about either music, old bands, or whatnot. Fun podcast. But yeah, other than that, on the viewing front, I got to tell you, I've been going out so much. I don't have a shit to even to report on the viewing front. Not a lot, honestly. What about you?
I actually got two things.
You've been away.
Yeah, but when I got home, I was completely shot. So I just sat in front of the TV, for a night or two. And so I did watch a couple things that are noteworthy. I watched a lot of stuff that was very unremarkable, but I finally got to see The Devils, the Ken Russell film.
Yes.
Have you ever seen that?
No, I've just had a DVD for 12 years in my to watch pile.
Do me a favor. Do me a favor and check that
years,
out. Yeah.
12 years. But anyway, go on.
Is it still in the wrapping and stuff too?
No, it's out of the wrapper. It is a boot of the uncut version. But
okay.
Go on.
All right. Yeah, do me a favor. Open that DVD case and put it in your player and watch it tonight because I loved it, man. It's on Shudder, or you can watch it streaming on Shudder. There you go. And
shaved down though. It's slightly.
It's a little cut. Yeah, it's not.
There's cuts. There's cuts on the Shudder one. Unfortunately, it's not fully cut. Yeah.
Right. So, but I don't have access to what the version you have, but it's still pretty good, man. And it's also very controversial for the time. It's got a
Yeah.
young Oliver Reed in it, a young Vanessa Redgrave, who's like simply ravishing in this movie.
Mm.
And
Hmm.
it's got all the stuff I love, man, like heavy duty, like anti-Christian vibes, like all this Catholic imagery, like crucifixes, like all that stuff, nuns. It's got it all.
Yeah.
You know,
It is a movie I know a lot about, okay, but have not seen. There's a bunch of, I could do an episode, movies I know about but haven't seen, and this is one of them. Sallow was another. I know a lot about Sallow. I've never seen it.
I've saw it
Um,
once, man, and that's all I need is this one
yeah,
time.
exactly. I'm afraid I've owned the Criterion Blu-ray for 8 years of Sallow. I haven't watched it,
That's
but yeah, it is time to crack open the Devil's DVD. Had it for a long time. And apparently this version I have is a very nice version. So like visually, I'm gonna do that. But I watched Fresh. I know you guys covered it last week. I really enjoyed Fresh, actually, the new horror film that's on Hulu. I thought it was really cool. And now I'm going to plunker down and watch The Batman, because The Batman is on HBO as of today, folks. April 18th.
That's outstanding. I'm going to
Yeah.
rewatch it probably over the weekend because I thought it was a great movie. You know.
Yeah, they're doing this 45-day out thing with the Warner movies, I believe. So, and it was 45 days from release.
Yeah,
So
that's fair enough.
there we go.
I also
But
watched
hell,
this
it's
thing
still playing.
on Prime. The have you seen the Kistery series?
No.
It's like that 3 episode, I'd say 3 or 4 episodes, of Kiss history, and
Hmm.
it takes it from the beginning all the way to the reunions, and
Oh,
all
okay.
the
I'll
different
watch that.
lineups of the band, like Eric Carr, of course Ace Frehley and Peter Criss declined to be interviewed, so there's only archival interview footage of them,
Mm.
and like stuff that they got from like different, like Revolver and like Loudwire type interviews. And lots of Gene and Paul, obviously.
Get out of here.
Um, I got to say, man, Ace Frehley has always been my favorite member of Kiss. But I got to say, I think Paul Stanley is probably the most likable member of Kiss, though.
You know what? He gets weird raps here and there, but he does seem like the most likable guy
Yeah,
in the band.
I think so.
Like the most quote normal in the band. Because Peter Criss, I've heard wild tales about him. I've heard 8 million wild Ace Frehley tales. Gene Simmons, just the douchey / not a nice guy tales. But Paul Stanley, I feel like I've heard mainly positive things.
Yeah, yeah, I kind of like Paul Stanley, Ace is always like, he's always going to be my favorite, like, member, just aesthetically, you know what I'm trying to say? But
Yeah,
but
no,
yeah,
absolutely.
I've grown to appreciate Paul Stanley.
Well, tonight, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to Europe, Mike. We're taking the kids, the whole fam, on a trip to Europe tonight, by way of Belgium. Yeah. Would be wonderful, absolutely wonderful Euro horror vampire film, Daughters of Darkness from 1971, directed by Harry Kumel. Not to be confused with my favorite 70s jam. Well, one of my favorite 70s jams, Daughters of Darkness, by Tom Jones. Not the same thing, Micah.
No, definitely not.
Good song.
Yeah.
Seek out that song, listeners. Daughters of Darkness by Tom Jones. Great song. Euro horror, okay? Some people love it. Some people don't like it. Some people are kind of in between. I'm going to go out on a limb right now. And aside from your Argentos and your Fulcis, I'm going to say Daughters of Darkness is a wonderful place to start with European horror, Michael. What do you think?
I agree with that, and the reason why I agree with it is that it's covering like familiar ground for a lot of people. It's a vampire story.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't get too crazy with the plot. The plot's pretty pretty linear.
No, it does not. Mm-hmm.
And if you like beautiful women, this
Yeah.
this movie is overflowing with beautiful women, beautiful,
Yeah.
beautiful women. Yes.
There are literally like 6 people in this movie, and 3 of them are drop dead gorgeous actresses. Yes, that is true.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love this movie. It is, to me, one of the most, or the most elegant vampire movies I've ever seen, Mike Hill. How about that?
It is, but it also is kind of sleazy too. You know.
A little sleazy, yes.
Yeah.
A little sleazy, yeah. But
It
the thing that sets this one apart from all of like the other kind of Bathory, sexy vampire, cash-ins of the early 70s, late 60s, etc., is the number one, I think, the acting. And number two, I feel like this has an air of class to it. Mainly brought in by actress Delphine Seyrig, who plays Bathory. I don't know. Something about her classes up the joint in this movie, Mike, for me.
Well, yeah. I mean, she's like a very accomplished, legitimate actress. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I would say out of all of the Bathory, movies based on Elizabeth Bathory, this is definitely probably the best. I'm definitely gonna like. There's been a few out there. The
Mm-hmm.
Blood Countess is one that comes to mind.
Mm-hmm.
And none of them really live up to this. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. The Hammer vampire, sexy vampire movies, like Twins of Evil, etc., like they're different from this one. I feel like those, although they have their coolness and atmospheric sides to them, this one, I don't know. I feel like this one is a bit above those. I feel like this is a better movie than some of those. I mean, it's better acting. Um, I got like I feel like The Shining has some visuals from this movie that probably are not. You know what I'm saying? It's one of those things where, Stanley Kubrick. I don't even know if I ever even saw this movie. But there are like these weird kind of moments in the hotel that I got little Shining vibes from. This is 71. Stanley Kubrick's movie is 1980. I mean, who the hell knows? The color red in this movie will just fucking, I fuck you,
Oh yeah, that was
I
one of
mean,
my favorite things actually. That is instead of a fade to black, it's a fade to red.
yes. Visually, it's a beautiful movie. It's got great music. I mean, there's a lot to like here. And I maintain that this is a wonderful place to start for your Euro horror outside of your Argentos and your Fulcis, because I feel like a lot of our listeners are familiar with the work of Dario Argento and Lucio Fulci, but may not have really, you know, jumped fully in uh, maybe in the European vampire stuff, or just again the non-marquee Euro stuff. That's what I think.
The version that you watched, I believe it was the Blue Underground one, right? That you have.
Yes.
Yeah, the
Mm-hmm.
same one I have. Yeah, so we watched
Yeah,
the
yeah.
same version of it and the same extras and all that kind of stuff too. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh, the extras are great actually. I have the new Blu-ray, which is it comes with the 4K HD, which I don't have. A Blu-ray, which of course I have a Blu-ray player, and the CD soundtrack. So it's a great 3-discer from Blue Underground. But I've had the standalone DVD from Blue Underground since like '08, '07, with the slipcase cover. So I have two of these movies. I have two versions. Yeah. But it is the same movie, though. It's the same. They didn't, it's not longer or anything like that. It just looks better, this one, than the old one.
I also want to underscore how awesome the film score is. The Francois de Roubaix film
Mm-hmm.
score. It's I think that's a typical thing with a lot of the better European films is that the way music really adds to the enjoyment of the film, the way it's kind of woven into the overall experience of the film. I think that European filmmakers utilize that way to the extreme, and I love that. And this
Oh,
movie is
yeah.
for sure like part of that whole like vibe.
The cool thing is, okay, this actually came out on vinyl in 2018 from the very cool Music on Vinyl label, who puts out like high quality releases of like tons of metal and punk and mainstream music. They did a really cool red vinyl version and a clear vinyl version. And then in 2021, they did an additional version with an extra 7-inch.
Oh wow!
So
Nice.
there's cool versions of this out there to on Discogs. I don't think there are any left, under $40 at this point, but it's definitely worth hunting down, even for $40-$50. That's how cool this music is. And I know my buddy has this on vinyl. It looks really nice. And I'm in the process of hunting one down myself. So
Yeah, I'm definitely gonna throw down. And the only version I have is the CD version that came with the Blu-ray. So it'd be cool
yeah,
to have a vinyl copy of it.
exactly. So I found this cool little, write-up introductory thing on the movie I would just like to share from Far Out Magazine at UK website. European horror is a thing of beauty, cooked up in a cauldron of existential dread, grief, and autistic audacity. Films such as Don't Look Now, Suspiria, and even Harry Kumel's Daughters of Darkness each possess a magical realism existing in a realm both inseparably real and fantastical. Whilst popular American films often focus on fear of the other, European horror pieces the terror into one's human mind. Digging deep into the human psyche, Daughters of Darkness is an erotic horror film set in Belgium following a newlywed couple who encounter a mysterious countess on their journey. The red-lipped stranger introduces herself as Countess of Bathory, a woman who the locals swear hasn't aged despite being there 40 years before she becomes obsessed with the newlywed couple and hatches her evil plans. I would say very solid summary overall.
Yeah, definitely. We should definitely
Mm-hmm.
run down the cast because there's some other notables here.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, yeah. So of course we have Delphine Seyrig as Countess Elizabeth, and the way they pronounce it is Bathory.
Bathory, yes.
Yeah. Uh, Daniel Danielle we may. She's a Canadian,
Mm-hmm.
and that's
Yeah.
Valerie Chilton.
Mm-hmm.
Now this was surprising, and when you brought this to my attention.
Oh yeah.
John Carlin as her husband, Stephen
Mm-hmm.
Chilton. Now, when I first saw this film, I figured this guy was like some sort of like Dutchman or something like that. Like he was like
Mm-hmm.
maybe Eastern European or something. But it turns
Right.
out he's a Brooklyn born and raised.
Yes. He's an American, and not only that, he was on Dark Shadows.
Yeah, Dark Shadows.
He
That's
played
right.
Willie Loomis, and in the '80s, he was on Cagney and Lacey. He was what do you call it? The husband of Mary Beth Lacey, Tyne Daly, Harvey Lacey. Young kids, Cagney and Lacey was a female cop show from 1982 to 1988 on CBS, and
You
he
know,
was the husband.
I didn't pick up on that. I remember him in Dark Shadows though, because I used to watch. I've watched that series a bunch of times.
Yeah, yeah.
Have you ever seen the kind of updated version of Dark Shadows? They tried to remake it.
No, I've always wanted to. I've heard actually some people, I've read in, some places that it's actually quite good.
Well, our mutual friend Stephanie,
Mhm.
who moved out to Colorado, swears by it apparently.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
I don't swear by it. I've seen a few episodes and I wasn't really that enthralled with it.
Mm. But I tell you, John Carlin is really cool in this movie. And yeah, if someone was going to make a bet with me for every, penny I had in the bank, if this guy was a European, I would say, yeah, he's European. I would have lost every penny I had in the bank because he's American. Yeah, I would have been in big trouble.
We also have
And
I'm
also,
sorry, go ahead.
yeah,
Yeah.
Andrea Rao,
Yeah.
uh, who was another stunning beauty. I have a question about her though, Mike.
Okay.
Right out the gate here. Is she a vampire?
We can address that because this
Ilona, yes.
plays into a lot of this is what makes this an interesting film, because the same way they play with the vampire genre, and it's a very
Hmm.
different type of film. I'm gonna say yes. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She's reluctant though. She says something. She wants to be dead. Number one,
Yeah.
that's important. She doesn't want to be there. She wants to run away. She's a reluctant vampire companion to Delphine, Elizabeth Bathory. Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
And we got two other people that kind of round out the cast. And like we were saying, there's
Yeah,
not a lot of people in this film. So we got
like
Paul
six. Yeah,
Paul Esser as Pierre, the concierge at the hotel,
he's
and
great.
George Jamin as the retired cop. So
Hmm.
he's like this fucking Yenta who just can't mind his own business, man. He's retired, and he's trying to solve crimes.
And we've got one more very interesting cast member here that literally I feel like it adds that 70s sleaze to the movie. Fons Rademacher as Mother.
Oh yeah, okay.
It adds that little something something to this movie. Would you agree?
Yeah, yeah. That's how can we forget? How can we forget that?
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, it's kind of shocking actually.
Yeah.
Are we going to spoil that?
You know
I
what?
mean,
Let's go ahead and do it, just because this movie came out like it's almost as old as we are. You know what I'm saying?
yes. It's. I was born in 73. This movie came out in 71. So yeah, this is a 50-year-old movie. Spoilers, people. We're going to spoil Daughters of Darkness, the hot new movie. So yeah, just be warned. But
Well,
yeah, I'm
yeah.
going to maintain, like I said, this is just. I mean, I enjoyed the hell out of watching this movie again. Made me realize just how much I dug it. I don't think I'd seen it since around '07 or '08 when I bought the DVD. So it was made for a very fun watch on Blu-ray.
Well, this movie starts out right away with
Hmm.
with some sexy stuff. You know what I mean? Like
Yes.
immediately, the newlywed couples on a train ride. Now, right away, we have like a lovemaking session between Stefan and Valerie, and
Hmm.
in the extras, they have all these interviews with all the different actors and actresses that were still alive at the time when they did
Hmm.
the extras. And Danielle Ouimet spoke about her experience as primarily doing this kind of like softcore porn sort of,
Mm.
and how back in the 70s people were just a lot more freer and they weren't as hung up about being naked. So to her, it felt natural just to be
Yeah.
acting nude.
Naked. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's what are your thoughts on that? I feel like our society has definitely gotten more uptight about this stuff unusually. I think.
100%. A while back, I might have even said it more than once, that there's like no nudity in movies anymore, even in R-rated movies. And sex scenes are fully clothed. And yeah, so I completely agree with you. Um, in the 70s and 80s, you were naked in a sex scene or you were topless. You know what I'm saying? I mean, there was nudity in a sex scene. I feel like we've moved quite a bit away from that, unless we're talking about indie films, Mike.
Yeah.
Studio movies, good luck. I can't recall any. So, again, unless it's either like some indie rated R movie or whatever. I don't know. Yeah, I mean, it was not a big deal at all. They didn't balk at it at all apparently back then, and that's just I think this is how society was.
And no one, and the thing that maybe there was a point in my life where part of me was like, oh, like we shouldn't be objectifying women and stuff like that. But after listening to her speak about it, I don't feel like there was any objectification. I feel like that it was something that she enjoyed doing and she just was like comfortable.
Yeah, before she did Doors of Darkness, she was in a popular erotic film. I watched the extras just like you. I can't remember the name of it, and there was like a part two of it. It did so well. So she was very very fine with showing off her body and her acting.
Well,
Um,
ironically, that film I think was called Valerie.
Valerie, yes,
Yeah,
yes, Valerie, right.
yeah,
And yes, the name of her character in Daughters of Darkness, which in Belgium is Le Ver Roger, the red lips or something like that. It's got a different name
yeah,
in Belgium, obviously. I do like the American name, Daughters of Darkness. I think it's cool.
yeah. No, definitely. And also, Andrea Rao was she was in Playboy, and
Yeah.
another one that
Mhm.
was very very comfortable being naked, and it wasn't thought of as any kind of exploitation or anything like that.
Yes, and also Delphine is not naked in this film. Countess Bathory, no nudity in this film.
Man,
Uh, but
she
she didn't need it, man. She chews the scenery,
yeah, I
folks.
was gonna
I
say
mean,
that.
it's,
Yeah.
this is her movie. This is her movie. She's kind of unforgettable in it. As a cool aside, um, what do you call it? What's her name? Lady Gaga took a page from her role and put it into what do you call it? What's that horror show she was on?
Oh, American Horror Story.
Yes, exactly. So she wore even that same kind of dress that she wears, that silver dress. She
Well,
kind of like fashioned it after this movie. Yeah,
okay, yeah. I like
pretty
Lady
cool.
Gaga, but she's definitely not on the same level as Delphine Seyrig. You know what I mean?
No, I mean Lady Gaga is a very attractive woman, but Delphine is a more attractive, more, I don't know. I almost feel like there's no comparison. I get what you're saying.
Yeah, and also let's give some props to the director who the filming of this film. Like when you first see Countess Bathory, it's the way it's shot, and in the extras they talk about how they're referencing like Marlene Dietrich and this
Mm,
very noir esque kind of framing. She
yeah,
has like that veil, and you see her lips, and there's all these shadows and everything, and it's just so artfully done. And yeah, just a great looking movie.
yeah. And she was about 39, 40 at the time of making this movie. And yeah, she just has this look about. I mean, you kind of can't take your eyes off her, Mike. Right? I mean, it's
Yeah,
just like
yeah, she just
she owns the movie, and it's just every scene she's in, and she has this voice that is kind of also like unforgettable. Um, Another reason why I think this is a great place to start for your Euro horrors is that this movie is shot entirely in English. Okay,
yes, that's
and it is
true.
not dubbed. This movie is not dubbed. There's no weird dubbing. It's a foreign film that is spoken and shot entirely in English. So I think that could also appeal to some of you. What do you think, Mike?
Yeah, totally. And being Belgian, it could have been shot in three different languages. It could have been shot in Flemish, German, and French. So the fact that they picked English is good for us.
Yeah, yeah. And man, I got to tell you, going back to that John Carlin, he speaks like, I mean, I don't know if it was for the role or not, but he sounds like a man with some kind of accent, but you just can't place what it is. Or maybe he doesn't have one and he's just speaking really good English, right?
Yeah, no, he's convincing as a European, as a Euro.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Um, Another interesting point to make about his character too is that he's a rich guy who comes from
Hmm.
old. You have this sense that his family is like old European money. Like their family probably were like lords or something like that in the distant from the medieval times or something, and they're just the idle rich. And Valerie is more working class,
Yeah,
and and that
right, right.
there's a big theme of love and entitlement, I think, in this film.
Hmm.
And it even one of the point of them making this trip is to have Valerie, because they just got married, meet the mother.
Hmm.
And she's very
Yes.
very concerned about whether or not his mother's going to like her or not. And
Uh-huh.
and Stefan is like, oh well, she already hates you without even meeting you. So it sets up this very class related, very elite sort of old money aristocratic sort of vibe, and that plays out through the whole film, really, about love and whether or not he actually loves her and all this stuff. You know what I mean?
Oh no, totally, totally. Also, though, I mean, once we find out a little more about his quote unquote mom, I mean, was he rich or was he kind of a grifter? Like, it's kind of like I almost was a little, you know, the eyebrows are kind of raised because I almost felt like maybe he was tied to mother, and that mother was his money and his, you know what I'm saying? But although I don't know, like that question isn't really answered. That was just something that kind of
Huh.
crossed my mind.
That's
That
interesting.
maybe,
That's an interesting point. I didn't really
yeah,
consider
like
that.
he actually is not the son of aristocratic British family. You know what I'm
Wow,
saying?
that's a whole other twist I didn't
Um,
even consider, actually.
yeah, that he is a gigolo. Yeah.
Oh, okay,
So there's
okay.
that possibility. Yeah. So as Mike said, um, the train they're on breaks down, and they end up in this beautiful seafront hotel in Belgium, the Ostend, um, which is deserted because it's like winter. It's basically like winter time.
It's
It's
off
winter
season.
time.
Yeah.
Yeah, off season, totally off season. That's where I got that kind of Shining vibes of the hotel because it's deserted and it has these beautiful hallways and steps and you know,
I was feeling the same
little
thing.
bit of Kubrick.
Definitely feeling the same
Yeah,
thing.
yeah. So they check in. There's a very interesting, guy at the front desk, Pierre, um, and Elizabeth Bathory and Ilona eventually check in, and the concierge is like astounded because he's like, I wouldn't forget a face. You checked into this hotel 40 years ago. And, you did. You know what I'm saying? Not your mother or a younger version like you as you are now. And she wants a certain room. And it turns out the newlywed couple has the room and she sees them dining. And thus begins the game of cat and mouse, so to speak, Mike.
Yeah, and I love how this whole thing really is just like almost it's like coincidental how
Mm-hmm.
everyone meets. You got this newlywed.
It was coincidental. Yeah.
Yeah, they just happen to be in this like expansive, brooding hotel on the seafront, and Madame Bathory and Luna just happened to be there at the. Everyone was there at the wrong time or right time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And yeah, so
Um,
and that's when the story really starts kicking in.
no, totally. And of course, Bathory has her sights on the both of them, but really mainly on Valerie, because you're almost getting the sense that she wants to replace Alona with Valerie. No duh. Um, you get these moments when Alona and Bathory are alone together, and Alona is super depressed and very upset. At one point, she tries to run away. She says she wishes she could die. So yeah, she's a very reluctant vampire companion to Bathory, I would say. And as Mike was saying, Valerie, John Carlin's wife, Stefan's wife, is kind of on John Carlin's ass to call the mother because she wants them to know that they've gotten married because the mother is not even aware that her son has run off and gotten married to this quote unquote lesser status woman, right? Um,
Yeah.
and at some point, that phone call is made, okay? And here's the big mic drop moment. And Stefan is talking, and we hear a very deep voice that we don't, it could be a woman's voice, it could be a deep older woman's voice, and then the camera suddenly goes to what Mother looks like, and Mother is in fact a man, an older, effeminate man wearing makeup, and it is dawned on the viewers that Stefan and quote Mother are in a relationship together, and that Stefan is, I'm going to throw it out there, Mike Hill, a bisexual.
Sure. Yeah. I mean
Okay,
this
yeah,
whole movie is very fluid in that
it's
sense.
bisexuality, and
Yeah.
practically, yeah. I mean, exactly. You know, Bathory, Ilona, Val, like, across the board practically, right? So it kind of makes sense. Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely reluctant to call him a homosexual man because he is marrying and, quite quite taken by his wife, but bisexual certainly, because he does have a relationship with Mother. We don't even get Mother's name. All we get is Mother, listeners. It's
Yeah.
a really, really weird moment. It's a great moment though. I think helps what makes this movie kind of unforgettable, really.
Yeah, and like I guess like for me, I like you read all these like gothic stories like take place in, like in different times. And the rich are always into some weird shit. They're always like these like weird
Yes.
kinky like things going on with the rich. And that's why I was like, oh, well, there's some sketchy thing going on here that's going to be largely unexplained that you just have to accept. But I guess like the idea that you have of him being a gigolo is kind of would apply, I suppose.
Yeah. And of course, Mother scolds Stefan for getting married, but he does express curiosity at the prospect of meeting Valerie, which I take as, well, it's never going to happen. He's probably never going to meet her, but it was a very interesting moment. Amidst all of this, listeners, there are murders going on in the neighborhood, in the city where the hotel is, where a lot of young, beautiful women are being murdered and, well, what do you know, drained of blood, right, Michael?
That's right. That's right. And this
is because,
yeah,
because, Countess Bathory and Ilona have hit the town, I guess, right? I guess that's kind of what's going on in the background.
And it's always women.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But yeah, they're really kind of stalking Valerie, Stefan. Countess Bathory is really kind of, getting in the middle of things and, trying to get the alone time with Valerie. And with Stefan, she's trying to send Ilona to go sleep with Stefan. There's like all that happening, right?
Yeah, she's a manipulator behind the scenes. And
very big manipulator.
And that whole concept of the vampiric relationship and the lead vampire replacing the having that replace that superseding the other one is like a common thing. Like even it made me think of The Hunger, and
yes.
Yeah, like where David Bowie's character gets like put in a box because he's starting to get he's aging out of it. You know what I mean? And yeah, you get that
I
feeling.
feel like I've also. Oh, I'm sorry. What?
Now you get that feeling with like even though Luna's like this beautiful young girl, like Countess Bathory, she just always just needs something new all the time, and she sees Valerie, and she's like, all right, yesterday's news, Luna's out, Valerie's in, and he made it her mission to pervert her into the ways of the vampire.
Like, is it me or this has gone on in other vampire movies where the head vampire, be it male or female, is literally always just on the lookout for new tang. I mean, you know what I'm saying? Like whether it be male or female tang, they're just always trying to, they always want to replace, I mean, it's just hilarious, really.
You ever see that Jamie Gillis porno movie, the Vampire Dracula Erotica?
No, never saw that one. No.
You got to see that sometime. I'm sure it's got like 17 other titles, but look up under Jamie Gillis's career. And ironically, he was a vampire who could not have sex. Yeah, that's a key plot element in that story. So
well,
there you go.
There's a school of thought there's a chance no vampires could have sex. All they can do is drink blood,
right?
And that gives them sexual pleasure. I feel like we've seen a mishmash of that in films. I feel like we've literally, like almost some vampires have never had actual sex. They've only just lusted the guy or the girl to drink the blood, and that's the sex. And then I feel like, no, we've seen the ones where they have been able to have sex, and it's just, it's kind of a mixed bag there, right?
Yeah, it's definitely a mixed bag, but in this one, sex is on the table for sure, man. Because everyone's having sex in this movie.
It's an adult film. Yeah. I would hope so, Mike.
I would say this is an adult film, man, especially from like the time frame it came out, like in '71. This is like a racy movie.
It is, but again, I feel like that there's an air of class and elegance in this movie due to the acting and the look and the clothing and the music. It's not your typical 70s schlock fest at all.
No, no, no. I mean, it's a beautiful film, and like I said, you just even having just the way it looks and Delphine Saragon, it just makes it
Mm,
another, but brings it to another level completely because she's so classy and just old
yeah,
school, like beautiful woman, man.
totally, totally. Um, so after that weird phone call, Stefan kind of gets a little nutty, and and there's a weird scene that you don't really see. You see through a window where he starts beating Valerie with his belt.
Yeah,
And they have like sex, and the next day you see her in the bed with all these welts on her. Um, and in that next day, it's when we have a scene where Ilona seduces Stefan while Valerie actually runs away from the hotel after the beating, and Elizabeth Bathory stops Valerie at the train station and brings her back to the hotel, and they get very friendly. And we have a very interesting scene where after Stefan and Ilona have had sex, where Stefan is trying to get Ilona into the shower very, very aggressively, I will add. She does not want to go in with the water, which I thought was interesting. For a moment there, I almost thought once her skin hit the water, it was going to melt, but no, that did not happen. Um, she falls during this tussle in the bathroom and slashes her hand on a razor. But okay, something I noticed. She grabs that razor. Okay. If you're paying attention, Ilona wants to die. She wants to run away. She's had enough of being a vampire. She, in my opinion, in this scene, Michael, kills herself in this scene because as they're falling, she grabs the razor in a way that it sticks up and she falls on top of it. Did you notice that?
no, 100%. I mean, yeah,
Yeah.
she wants out. She does tired of living. Who knows
Yep.
how old she is? Really,
Hmm.
how all this stuff comes
Yeah.
together.
Yeah.
She's just over being a child of the night, and a
Right.
daughter
Right.
of darkness, if you will.
Daughter of Darkness. Yeah, she's over it. And I tell you, I think it's actually one of the cooler. The lack of the Alona backstory here is kind of cool in a way. What do you think? There's a lack of backstory on her.
Yeah, I mean, I like a lot of like that leaving to your
Hmm.
imagination kind of stuff. And this movie is very goth, you know what I mean? It's like
Yeah.
it's very like Roz Williams, Christian Death, like the whole thing is like very suicide, I'm tired of living, like dark, that kind of thing. And
Hmm.
and Andrea Rao has that look, with the bangs and everything.
Oh, yeah. She is like a knockout. I mean, look, all the women in this movie are knockouts. And of course, we have the handsome John Carlin from
Yeah,
Brooklyn.
yeah, the handsome,
Got to
yeah,
give him his props. Who looks like he, just stepped out of like, a swinging 70s party himself.
exactly.
Um, so Valerie and Bathory come into the apartment. They see Alona dead on the floor. They think, of course, John Collin murdered her. He did not murder her. Uh, Valerie says, we'll call the police. Bathory is like out of the question. So they all kind of wrap her up, and they're all accomplices in murder, of course, at this point. And they get her body, out of the hotel. They throw it off the what is that? The veranda there, and they go to a field to bury her body. And we have a really interesting scene while John Carlin, Stefan, is digging a grave, where at this point, Bathory has her hooks in what do you call it, Valerie at this point, and there's that scene where she kind of like opens up the jacket she's wearing, and it looks like she has like bat wings, but it's
Yeah,
really the jacket.
yeah.
That was fucking sick. That scene, like the
That
way
that
it
I
was
wish I had
shot
a
and the light.
poster. I wish I had a framed poster of that. That was amazing.
Yes, yes. There are no bat transformations in this movie, listeners. There's no supernatural other than the fact that she is a vampire, right? But there's this one cool scene in the moonlight while a grave is being dug where she just kind of like embraces her, and it looks like bat wings. It's like really, really fucking cool. Um, and of course, while this is going on, there's the watchful eye of the retired policeman who has been kind of casing them this whole time, because he himself remembers the old Bathory from whatever years ago, and of course so does Pierre, the concierge, who I'm proud to say makes it out of this movie alive. The concierge, Mike, I'm happy
Yeah,
that
yeah.
he suffers no fate. Um,
Well, just
but
real
as they
quick about some
hightail
of
it out
the.
of there after they bury the body, the policeman gets rammed by a car. I don't think he's killed though. What about that? I think he's injured.
I don't know, man. It looked
The retired policeman.
looked like a pretty brutal car.
Yeah, really?
Yeah.
Okay. Maybe I was just hoping he wasn't dead. They
Well,
kind of like cap him with the car
about
on a
about
bike.
the vampire stuff though. True. No bat transformations, but and also no fangs.
Not
Like
really.
there's no
No.
neck biting. There that when they suck blood, it's out of like an incision usually.
That's a good point. There
You
are
know.
no fangs in this movie. Right,
And
right.
if you read back on the Elizabeth Bathory story, the legend, she's bathed in the blood of women. You know what I mean?
Right.
So she's not
Now,
exactly like Dracula. You know what I mean? It's not
no,
that
she's
type of
not.
thing at all. It's a different style.
She does not go out in sunlight though. So it's weird. She has a mix of the vampire tropes
Yes.
mixed with like just a blood drinker trope.
And no
Like
reflection. No reflection either.
yes, no reflection. Right. Doesn't go out in the daytime, but no fangs. Um, I mean, and although Elizabeth Bathory did exist and was not a good woman, um, she wasn't a vampire per se, but
No.
for this movie they have kind of mixed the Elizabeth Bathory history with vampirism, which I thought was a cool thing.
Yeah, they definitely established that she's like ageless because of the whole setting with Pierre and having seen her and have him and he was a young man when he saw her originally.
Yeah. They make it back to the hotel, the three of them, right as the sun is just about to hit, right? Um, and they get back to the room, the three of them, and I think at this point, like, Stefan has had enough. He wants to grab his wife and get the fuck out of Dodge, grab Valerie. But Valerie, it has now come under the spell of Bathory. And I believe during that embrace, that cool shot I was speaking about moments ago, was bitten by her and is now a vampire, Mike. Right?
Yeah, because her whole
Yeah.
demeanor is
Mhm.
different. Also,
Yes.
I want to say one more thing about Stefan is that when they're walking around the town earlier in the film, and there's a scene where there's the murder, you know what I mean, and the cops are there, they discovered a body. You can see the foreshadowing that Stefan is like has like a dark side. Like he's
Yeah.
into like
Yeah, he's a wacky guy.
yeah,
Mhm.
he's into like hurting women and all that kind of stuff. You know what I mean? Like he
Mhm.
kind of is into the fact that there was like this woman who was murdered, and it excited him.
Exactly. Yeah. He's into death. He's into violence. He's got a secret. He's a tortured man. You
Yeah,
know. So she's under Elizabeth Bathory's spell. There's a big fight that breaks out in the room. Uh, Weird moment. How they actually end up eventually killing Stefan. This glass bowl breaks as they're about to smash it. Suffocate him with it on the floor, and it breaks into two pieces that kind of slash his wrists,
yeah.
and each of them grab one of his wrists and start drinking his blood, and he dies. And then they wrap him up the same way they wrapped Alona up, and they get him in the car. It's kind of like almost like a repeat of what happened earlier in the film. But again, a day has passed at this point, and they do not want to be caught in the sunlight, and they're kind of speeding on a road, and then they're kind of blinded by the sunlight, and Valerie loses control of the car. Um, Elizabeth Bathory is thrown from the vehicle and impaled on a broken branch just as like the sun is coming up and the car catches on fire. That was actually a really great scene, huh?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, and I have to say that it's probably a little nod to Dracula, Vlad the Impaler. you know.
Yes, yes. We think Valerie is also dead because the car kind of catches on fire and explodes. Okay. Then there's a crawl across the screen that says several months later. We see Valerie, all beautiful, looking very pale, with a young couple at playing tennis at a resort. And she's giving this young, beautiful couple the same spiel that Elizabeth Bathory gave to her and Stefan, like saying all these lines about how great it was to meet them, right? Like the whole, seductive charm that Bathory laid on her, months prior. And of course, we know as the viewers that Valerie is the new, you know, head blood drinker in charge and is probably going to kill this beautiful couple, and the film ends. Um, Again, watching this for the first time in over 10 years made me realize just how much I really like this movie. And it is way up there in my vampire films and in my Euro horror films. A lot of fun, a lot to like. And this film is a 5 out of 5 for me, Michael.
Oh, it's a 5 out of 5 for me too. You know, I
Mm.
loved it. I thought it was great. I think this is one of my favorite vampire films. In addition to Bram Stoker's Dracula.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's definitely right up there. Um, yeah, this movie even had a New York City premiere, May 28th, 1971. Must have been fun to see it in the theater back then, huh?
Oh yeah, like once again, our favorite time frame, the '70s.
Hmm.
You know, if you and I were
Um,
alive in the '70s, I'd have an afro and like sideburns. You know, you'd have a must. Well,
um,
you have a mustache, but you'd have like a bigger one.
yeah, I have a mustache right now, folks.
Yeah.
Listeners, I have a mustache now. So, yeah. Um, in the early 2010s, Time Out magazine and Time Out, the website, did a top 100 horror movies. Daughters of Darkness placed at number 90. How about that?
Wow, that's respectable though.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
For this movie to crack 100 best horror movies out of a fairly mainstream publication,
Yeah.
that is quite good. And feminist critique Camille Paglia wrote quite a bit about this movie and how much she liked it. Um, and she said, lesbian vampire films in the early 70s, went from the pornographic to the dreamy aesthetic. And as the gothic horror movie took to flaunting its psychosexual subtext, Daughters of Darkness leans flamboyantly toward the artistic end of the spectrum. Yeah, and it's just, she kind of basically is talking about how it kind of separates itself from those kind of more lesbian titillation films of that day.
Yeah,
Which there is way more to it.
I mean, yeah, I mean, this movie is a sexy movie, number one, and number
Mm-hmm.
two, but it has that artistic vibe to it, which makes it not exploitation straight up. You know what I mean?
Mm.
At least that's my
Oh,
take
no,
on it.
totally.
Yeah,
Yeah. I mean, and like I said, I think, if you're more of a reluctant person with the European stuff, or you don't like the dubbing, or it just, some of it might just be a little kind of over the head. I mean, this is an extremely linear film, and it's got a beginning, middle, and ending. It's you don't have to do math homework to follow it. I think I just highly recommend it, honestly.
yeah. The other thing too, which makes it very European, is how awkward the violence is. You know, like the violence actually, like the kills are not like the center point of the gore. There's no real gore. There's some blood, but that's not
Right.
you don't watch this movie to see like gore and kills and violence necessarily. You know, you watch
No,
this movie for
totally.
it's all very atmospheric.
Yeah, it's not like over the top violence at all. Uh the kills in it are necessary. I wouldn't say they're gratuitous at all.
No.
You know, they're part of the plot, part of the story, right?
Yeah, no, it's exactly it's part of telling the tale, you know.
No, totally. But yeah, 2 5 out of 5s from us, kids. Uh, we hope you check it out. Please let us know what you think of Daughters of Darkness. if you're going to see it for the first time, or if you're going to do a rewatch or whatever. Again, I think it's something that the listeners will really dig, Mike.
Yeah, it's funny when I read that same bit with Camille Paglia, I thought she was gonna like condemn this movie. Honestly,
No.
Yeah.
It's yeah. Again, it's different. It's not just like some cheeseball, titillation film at all. So yeah.
Yeah.
All righty, man. That will wrap up this episode where we took you guys to Europe. Where will we go next, Mike Hill?
Well, I think for literally the next episode, we're going to be going to someplace in the southern half of the United States.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that sounds like a hint. That's a hint, I guess, out there. And it's going to be a new-ish film.
Okay.
That's all I'll say
Sounds
about
good.
it. Yeah.
All righty. Once again, please hit the subscribe button if you're listening to us on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. If you're on Instagram, check us out on Instagram, Necromaniacs. If you are a Facebook person, we are on Facebook, Necromaniacs Podcast. And we thank the new listeners, the old listeners. We thank you very much.
All right, guys. We'll talk to you next week. Take care.
Take care.
Thought I did